for me to tell you a clear-cut answer, I need to be 100% that this is the situation. I don't want to say it's likely not us. I want to be very, very clear. I want to be 100% certain that it was us or it wasn't us. We've not been able to determine that it was us up till now.
Can I ask you about those reports in the Washington Post? The deal being that we're told about, that the Post is reporting, is that 50 or more hostages would be released every 24 hours over a 5-day pause in fighting. Can you confirm if that is being discussed?
Obviously, there's a lot of discussions taking place behind the scenes on the issue of hostage release and hiatus and pauses and humanitarian pauses in the battles. I would say from the military's perspective, we're focused on bringing the hostages home. So we're organizing our activities around operational capabilities and intelligence capabilities. Those discussions, the discussions of a pause, are not conducted on the level of the IDF, but rather diplomats and diplomacy. That is the best way it should be. Of course, it has its implications for the military activities, and we are taking that into consideration. Of course, it's the issue of hostages is a top priority, a national priority for us. The hostages need to be brought home. We will do what we can in order to bring them home. We need also the international assistance. We've demanded that the International Committee of the Red Cross have access to assess the well-being of the hostages. But in the meantime, we are continuing our efforts to bring them home.
Okay, so you can't confirm or deny, but clearly conversations ongoing, understandably so. I also want to ask you about a UN school which has been turned into a shelter for people, Al-Fakhoura, which is in Jabalia. There was a strike on that shelter yesterday. Footage has emerged showing women and children lying with severe injuries or motionless on the floor. The head of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees said there were horrifying images and footage of scores of people killed and injured. He said thousands of people are sheltering there who are displaced. He said these attacks cannot become commonplace. They must stop. I know there was an investigation by the IDF to see if this was an Israeli strike. Is there a conclusion to that? Did Israel strike this UN school turned shelter?
So first of all, the images are horrifying. It's a true human tragedy of civilians being caught up in this war. We, in our investigation, have not been able to determine that it was an IDF strike. Our Air Force, our artillery, we've not been able to determine that at this stage. And we need to be very, very cautious about determining or making a clear-cut decision based on what Hamas is telling us, because we've been proven more than once in the last 6 weeks that Hamas can't be trusted. So we are continuing our investigation in order to come to a final conclusion exactly who's responsible for this strike. Indeed, it is a tragedy. The images are heartbreaking. And
you are absolutely right that Hamas in the past has distorted facts. Of course, that is bound to happen. They are a terrorist organisation. But also, this is a high-tech war on the side of the Israelis. I just wonder how long it would take to reach to a conclusion of that investigation. You must know what jets are dropping bombs and where they're dropping them. I don't understand. Maybe you could explain to us what the delay is in coming to a conclusion in that.
So first of all, there's on-ground after-action review. There's technology that is involved. We utilize different methods. We utilize intelligence on the ground as well. So we need to be, for me to tell you a clear-cut answer, I need to be 100% that this is the situation. I don't want to say it's likely not us. I want to be very, very clear. I want to be 100% certain that it was us or it wasn't us. We've not been able to determine that it was us up till now. And so I understand the need for an immediate answer, but sometimes, especially in the fog of war, there is so much going on. It's very hard to get to a clear-cut answer of any situation. We are doing everything, when we've been calling for the last month and a half for people to evacuate the north of Gaza Strip, to get them out of harm's way. Unfortunately, people did not listen to us, either because Hamas told them to stay, or when people started listening to us, then they began intimidating them. And in a worst case situation, they even erected checkpoints preventing people from evacuating. So we are doing everything in order to try and get people out of harm's way, whereas Hamas are trying to keep them in harm's way. Our investigation is ongoing, and until I have a clear-cut answer, I want to be very, very cautious, because you asking me a question, you expect a truthful, based answer, and that is what I expect from our forces And only when we have it all clear for when we'll be able to determine that it was 100% not us or 100% was us, we need to be very, very clear in our announcement.
Of course, another reason why some people weren't able to leave.
It's not all high-tech, Chloe, because there is things that in developing a situation on the ground, sometimes it's very, very hard to know exactly what's happened. There is so much going on.
Of course, it's worth pointing out that some of the people who are in the north of Gaza who didn't leave also didn't leave because they weren't able to. Maybe they were disabled, they were infirm, they were old. There wasn't a safe way for them to get out. Let's talk about Al-Shifa Hospital. We know that hundreds of people have left. We know, the Hamas Health Ministry is saying 120 patients and doctors remain, very small number of doctors remain in that hospital. The WHO visited the site and said Al-Shifa Hospital was a death zone. Can you guarantee the safety of those patients and doctors who remain in the hospital? They are people who cannot be moved because they are too sick. They are an unspecified number of premature babies. Can you guarantee they will be safe in Al-Shifa Hospital?
So everybody was expecting some sort of massacre when the IDF came into the hospital grounds. Obviously, we were very focused on specific locations and specific mission of revealing Hamas's command control capabilities, its terrorist tunnels, its weapons, where they were hiding them. Of course, we've safeguarded the civilians and the patients in the hospital and distinguished between them and the military operation ongoing.
But the World Health Organization did find a mass grave at the hospital's entrance containing around 80 bodies.
But that, first of all, I don't know that. But this is what they've reported.
Well, that's what they've said, yes.
But there was a war ongoing before the IDF arrived at the hospital. So we don't know when these bodies are from. It's definitely not from the IDF operation, because as the IDF came into the hospital, there were no shots fired. When we were on the way to the hospital, we had engagement by RPGs, explosive devices, small arms fired at the forces. 5 terrorists were killed in the engagement before entering the hospital. But in the hospital compound, there was no shots fired by our forces. And when we came in, what we did immediately was distinguish between the civilians. We told them to keep away from the hospital, from the windows. We were in constant contact with the administration of the hospital in order to keep them updated about where our activities are, so that they keep away from those locations specifically. And we also supplied incubators for the babies. Food.
But they didn't have power to plug them in.
The incubators we supplied were for the movement of babies out, so they have power units so that they can continue. So this was the whole idea of bringing the incubators, because obviously they have incubators, but as you said, they have power. But to address the power issue, we also brought fuel so that they could power the essential tools that need to be ongoing. Of course, the situation in the hospital, I'm not sugarcoating it in any way. It's a dire situation. It is a war zone. For weeks, we've been telling the WHO and the administration that they need to evacuate the hospital. And indeed, as you pointed out, 120 people in the hospital. If that would have been the situation when we began our operation in the hospital, it would have been much better to begin with anyway. But we obviously understand the situation, and that is why we're distinguishing between the civilians in the hospital, and we've continued to supply food and water and medical supplies to the people. And we engaging with the administration of the hospital today and tomorrow and last night. And I expect that there will be a further evacuation today of perhaps of the babies. That's what we're looking to try and to coordinate as we go through this day.
Of course, other people were saying on the other side that actually the reason that people didn't leave the hospital earlier was because they didn't feel there was safe passage, and some people were shot at as they left the hospital. So that is some of the reasons.